Vaskar looked out upon the great expanse of forests ahead of his clan as they came across the mountains. They had had no resistance from the dwarves who claimed the peaks so far, much to his dismay. He had hoped to clash with the short folk, to test their mettle on the battlefield. However, his people needed the wood that the forest would provide, and he hoped to claim one of the sylvan folk as his personal prize. "My chief," one of the warriors spoke, "we are ready to enter the wood. We have encountered no resistance to our scouts' entry." Kerr looked at the young man speaking to him. "The woods will speak to us, Rokesh. It will not give up without blood being shed. The creatures of the forest are watching us. Soon they will taste the blades of the three-faced god, and we shall be bathed in whatever these creatures call blood." With that, the first wave of the barbarians began to move deeper into the woods, hearing nothing but the sound of their footsteps and a gentle bird's call. Hi everyone, Matiram here again with another battle report in our narrative campaign. This one has the Varangar under Kerr Vaskar entering the woods of Springhollow and facing off against the Elves contained therein. We're having a 2,000 point battle with the Scavenge scenario. So pretty straightforward, lots of forests here because obviously they're coming into the woods. You can see across the center we've got the three looting tokens that we're going to be fighting over. So fairly straightforward. I haven't played the Elves in a little bit, and this is my opponent's first Varangar game at all. So we'll see how it goes. Let's go ahead and jump right into his deployment. So starting here on his left, he has a unit of Sons of Corrigan Regiment. These guys have exchanged their shield for two-handed weapons. So they're like crushing strength 3, which is just absolutely terrifying. Then we've got a regiment of mounted Sons of Corrigan with I guess the Gift of Corrigan is an extra thing they can buy. Both of those units have that to give them fury. Next, behind the forest, is another unit of Sons of Corrigan. These guys have their normal hand weapon shield, the Gift of Corrigan, and the Brew of Courage. Behind them is his chieftain on a Direfang. He has the Gift of Corrigan and the Healing Charm. Then there is a Warband regiment that he has exchanged shields for two-handed weapons on. Behind them is a Magus on mount with Bane Chant and Fireball spell in addition to his Lightning Bolt. Then he has a unit of Direfang Riders with the Gift of Corrigan. He also looks like made a mistake here. He gave them the Potion of the Caterpillar, which isn't super helpful because they already have Strider. Next to that is a unit of Bloodsworn with the Brew of Sharpness and the Gift of Corrigan. Then there is a troop of Tundra Wolves. Behind them is a regiment of Cave Trolls. And then on the far side of the broken up tower is a unit of Horse Raiders with Fire Oil. So I'm going to be starting on my right to left here. I've got a unit of Kindred Archers. Then vanguarded up front, I have a Tree Herder and a unit of Horde of Forest Shamblers. Then I have a Dragon Kindred Lord. Next to that is a regiment of Therenian Sea Guard. Then I have a troop of what is that? Oh, that's a troop of Hunters of the Wild. An inch behind them is, and I know this is looks a little confusing from this, but these ones that are spread out a little bit is actually a second unit. That is a unit of Palace Guard, regiment form. Then in the forest, I have a second regiment of kindred archers, and right behind them is my elven mage. She has lightning bolt in addition to the normal heal spell. Then over here we have a unit of Stormwind cavalry, and on the far side is a unit of kindred tall spears in regiment form. My only real strategy here, I've never played the Varangar. All I know is that cavalry is bad. So what I want to do is use the tall spears here and their phalanx to hopefully bait an early charge out of the mounted sons, figuring that I can probably survive that and then countercharge with both my Stormwind cavalry and the tall spears, and hopefully we'll be able to take them out. Other than that, I'm hoping just to start shooting at his softer targets and find a way to get combo charges where I can. So my opponent gets first turn. He comes up with his mounted raiders, hoping to start shooting at my shooters and just get into me. He brings up his Tundra Wolves just a little bit and is very, very conservative, in my opinion, to his detriment on pretty much everything else. He doesn't want to give me any easy charges. I don't know if he realizes how much of my army is shooting and how I'm more than happy just to pick off what I can pick off before he gets into combat with me. So I definitely think this was a mistake on his part. And he basically sticks with that mistake all the way down his battle line. He moves up, I think, 2 inches, 3 inches maybe, across the whole board. And it's good news to me, frankly. Same thing over here. He repositions his character on the Dire Fang to support this side. And I think he's going to be really kind of held up. He did enter the forest with his Sons of Korgan, and I think he's just going to get stuck there for a while because I'm certainly not coming to him on this flank. So we go to my turn because he literally had nothing else to do. He had marched up, so he didn't even get a chance to throw his axes. I decide to bring my Dragon Kindred Lord over here. I'm thinking I should be able to take these guys out, shouldn't be a problem. And it really wasn't until after this point that I realized that I'm chasing down 120 points maybe with 450 points of dragon and archers. So this was probably not my best tactical decision, but it is what it is. I went ahead and moved the Shamblers into the forest there on the left, hoping that he kind of brings his guys into me and gets stuck. I'm leaving my Tree Herder close enough where he can inspire and kind of drawing him out. I'm hoping that he takes the bait with the Tundra Wolves and maybe even the Trolls and kind of pulls them away from his line to go after that Tree Herder. Because I think the Tree Herder can handle them. I'm not faced against Trolls yet, but I'm thinking they can't be that difficult to deal with. Over here, I decide to leave my center block more or less together. I don't want to move any of the shooters because with his movement up, he is moved just within range. So I'm going to try and get some shots there. And then this little conga line of the hunters with my Palace Guard behind, I just start bringing up. Again, I'm trying to tease him out a little closer. I don't want to give up any easy charges, but I need to thin some stuff down and I need to get him out of this battle line because I just don't have the units to go toe-to-toe with him and trade blows straight up because the Varangar are just way scarier than I am, I think. And then over here, I set my trap with the Phalanx on the hill and move over my Mage so she can throw some lightning bolts, hoping to get a few early wounds on the mounted knights, or the mounted sons. I shoot here with the regiment of archers, and because I turned, I needed 6s to hit and only wounded him once, so that's not really going to help matters. Over here, however, I do much better. The Sea Guards shoot at his Direfang riders and put 4 wounds on them. Unfortunately, I don't even waver them. And then my other unit of archers, the archer regiment on this side, just opens up on this little lightly armored warband unit of his and gets 6 wounds in. But then I roll like garbage and I don't even waver them. So not the best. And then over here I get a single wound off with the lightning bolt on the mounted sons, which isn't terrible. It could have been much better, but at this point they're not going to get into combat immediately with anything I don't want them to, so sneaking a few wounds here or there is better than nothing. And then we go into top of 2, and my opponent uses some nimble tricks to get around the side of my dragon, and there is nothing I can do about that. I'm not going to be able to charge him, so I'm just going to have to change directions and breathe, which again prevents me from going forward and essentially succeeds in tying up my dragon again because I'm dumb. And over here, he again is playing very cautious, more so than I think the Varangar really deserve. He shoots forward his warband here on the left, hoping to pick up a quick loot token from the Scavenge objective in the middle. He brings up his Tundra Wolves to block me. The problem is, what he doesn't realize is the movement of the warband is actually within 12 inches now of the closest point to point of my Shamblers, and he couldn't get close enough to me to prevent me from being able to get past him with my pivot before the charge. So if I really want to sneak out there, I can go get those guys. My only hesitation to that is I think it would leave this flank very weak if he brings the rest of his stuff to the right instead. And I'm not sure that I want to do that yet. But the bigger problem is that he just didn't advance up this flank here enough for them to really be a threat. So he's not really holding me down on much of anything. And over here, he did decide to take the bait against the Phalanx Tall Spears. So I'm really happy that he's not going to get Thunderous Charge, and I think they can hold out. They're probably going to take a beating, but since they haven't taken any wounds yet, I'm still thinking they're going to hold out. He does take the leftmost unit of Sons of Corrigan and gets within 3 of the Scavenge tokens, so he's going to get him a loot piece next turn. And he moves up so that he's still in the forest here with his rightmost Sons of Corrigan. These guys take some throwing axes and chuck them all upside the head of my dragon and put 3 wounds on him. Then he scares me by proceeding to roll an 11 on the nerve check and almost wavered me. I'm just like, please don't let me lose 310 points of Dragon Lord from 5 dudes on a horse with spears. But it's definitely going well for the minimal amount of anything my opponent has on this side of the board. He throws some magic, gets heals 1 wound off his Direfang riders, and then opens up and does 7 wounds even without his crushing or his thunderous charge into the tall spears, and then rolls pretty badly on his nerve check and bounces off an inch, which is frankly exactly what I was looking for. So we go to my turn. I decide to dance the dragon over here, and hopefully I'll just fire breath and shoot these guys to death and get them out of my hair. They've already been tying me up for 2 turns, which is frankly all my fault. And I need to just make that not happen. The downside I noticed is because of how I pace this out, if this doesn't work, he's got a perfect amount of space to essentially run his guys through the gap between my archer and my dragon lord. I am just absolutely having my head up my ass on this right flank, and I deserve to get beaten for it. Over here, I decide to just go ahead and overkill the hell out of these Tundra Wolves so that I can reform and present a good line here. I'm not 100% sure that this was the best choice. I decided that my shooting in the middle could take out the unit of the warband before they can claim that token. But if it doesn't, then he's essentially going to have 2 tokens going into the next turn, and that could go bad. So I'm kind of gambling, but I think I can make it work. And over here, I do exactly what I was planning on. The Stormwind Cavalry and my Tall Spears go back into the Knights, hoping to wipe them off the table. And other than that, nothing else really moves. Luckily, between the shooting and the fire breath, I do 8 wounds to the horse raiders and actually rout them. It was a close thing, though. I rolled exactly what I needed to rout them. So this could have gone very, very badly, and it was just pure dice luck that made it not go that way. It's still kind of stupid that that he's tying up basically a quarter of my army with 1 unit, but that's me not playing the game well. Over here, on the plus side, my archers do what they need to do in the middle. It did take pretty much everything I had to do so, however. But it was enough. Those guys get routed, and he's not going to be able to claim his point on the start of next turn. And over here, obviously, 2 tons of treemen stomp a mud hole in a bunch of wolves and reform, as you see here. Over here, we do destroy the Mounted Sons of Corrigan. I overrun with the Tall Spears, basically sitting right on top of the token, so he's going to have to kill them before he can claim it this turn. And I left the cavalry back so that I can kind of go either way depending upon what I need to do. And my opponent on his turn, a good thing and a bad thing happens. Good thing, he stops being so frankly cowardly with all of his units and decides to shove them right down my face. He throws the Dire Fang right in the front of the Shamblers and throws his other 2 units, including the Trolls, right into the front of the Tree Herder. The thing that goes bad, you'll notice his wizard is not on that rock in the back anymore. He bumped it, and it literally just fell off the rock and fell apart in like 4 pieces. So he's got a lot of gluing work to do. Over here, he just moves his characters around so he can throw Bane Chant and heal on his Dire Fang Riders. And over here, he decides to go ahead and chuck both Sons of Corrigan into the fight. The ones with the great weapons are going at the Tall Spears. The guys that were in the forest are going after the cavalry. Now I'm thinking this isn't really going to be much of anything because he's hindered. And I've got good armor, but we'll kind of see where it goes from there. He does end up healing another wound off of his Dire Fang Riders and gets Bane Chant off on them. So the Shamblers are in kind of some trouble here, I think. Obviously, the poor, already beaten Tall Spears are not going to stand up against a fresh unit of Sons of Corrigan, and they just get demolished. And then, holy shit, his other Sons of Corrigan roll out of the freaking box and absolutely destroy my Stormwind Cavalry, routs them with room to spare, and what I thought was a pretty good trap has 100% turned on me, and my opponent pretty much controls the left third of the board unopposed. Over here, he didn't do as well as I thought. I guess he burned all of his dice luck on the left side because he only put 7 wounds on the Shamblers and can't get them to break. So he bounces off. And over here, again, not doing great. He was hindered with his Bloodsworn there. But even with that, he should have done, between them and the Trolls, he really probably should have done more than 5 wounds. I don't know, maybe not. I'm looking at a 6-up defense. The Trolls should have put a hurting on me, but I don't think the entire unit of Bloodsworn might have done a wound. I think the Trolls did the other 4. Um, so needless to say, he's not even wavering me and bounces off an inch here. And now I've got some decisions to make. And so what I decided to do, I couldn't actually see the trolls with my Dragon Lord, which was unfortunate. So I had to move up to here. I'm going to try and breath weapon and shoot them off the board. I'm figuring they've probably got the least of the nerve, so that's probably a better option. I go ahead and charge or countercharge into the Bloodsworn with my Tree Herder, and I countercharge into the Direfang Riders with my Shamblers. You can also see I managed to get a charge on the flank of the Shamblers with the Sea Guard. They are just barely touching the edge of the forest, so they are hindered. But at this point, extra wounds is extra wounds, and I'll take whatever I can get. I decide here to rush up real hard because his guy on the Direfang Mount is not an individual, so he could actually claim points from the salvage token there in the middle, so I just decide to go ahead and give him pause to do that. And then over here I just reform to start throwing damage at these guys, hoping to take them out with shooting, but I'm in a lot of trouble here, and if he comes to mess me up, this could be a very bad day for all elves concerned. Then shooting just goes bad. Between the fire or the breath weapon and the shooting from the elves, I only get 3 wounds through on the trolls and don't manage to do shit to make them go away. Over here it goes even worse. Between a 5 dice lightning bolt and 10 shots from arrows, I inflict 1 wound on this Sons of Corrigan unit. Then luck starts going well. The Shamblers just absolutely beat the crap out of the Direfang Riders. The Spearmen in the side, they do a few wounds, but it's mainly just because I was throwing a ridiculous number of dice. But it was enough where I needed to break them, and did, and I reform as you see here. So we go into my opponent's turn. He starts his turn claiming this objective and gets his first treasure token. And then the trolls charge into the flank of the Tree Herder, and they are just barely touching the edge of that forest, so they're going to be hindered there. And the Bloodsworn, who weren't hardly hurt at all by the poor Tree Herder, charge him in the front. So I'm thinking unless he just rolls god-awful, my Tree Herder can be in a lot of trouble here. You also see up top he just moves around his characters so he can give some magical benefit there as well. Over here he decides to push up on my archers, which is arguably maybe a mistake. I figure he could have either backed up and next turn gotten a token with them from the salvage there, or he could have 90-degree turned and marched towards the flank of my guys that are here in the center and contest that. There's not really much of a point towards victory of going after these archers, so I guess that's a good news for me. And over here, holy crap, the dice goes badly. He ends up healing, like he completely healed, I think, his unit of Bloodsworn there, and then does a grand total of 3 wounds between the trolls and the Bloodsworn to my Tree Herder, and that's not going to be anywhere close enough to break him, so those guys bounce off. And then I decide to make his life hell. I countercharge the trolls with the Tree Herder and charge the Dragon Lord into the back, so those trolls are probably gone. I know it doesn't look like I'm touching, but with the Dragon Lord's head, I can't actually get any closer than this with the model. I also run my archers up to that token because this is bottom of turn 4. I need to start getting some points. And then the Bloodsworn take my Spearmen in the side and my Shamblers in the front. Spearmen, again, are just barely touching the forest, so they're going to be hindered. You also see up at the top, bad news for him, both the Hunters of the Wild and my Palace Guard were able to see the flank of his character on the Dire Fang there. So they're going to absolutely wreck his world, hopefully. And here's just a better picture of that because it makes me happy. Over here, I'm at this point thinking maybe I should just try and distract him. So I moved my character over here hoping to throw some lightning bolts. Otherwise, I'm giving him the charge into the forest if he wants it. And I throw shooting and lightning bolts, and it's exciting, but ineffectual as it only does 2 wounds. Over here, yeah, these guys just absolutely destroy the character on the Dire Fang. And then I realize, oh crap, I ran away from the token and forgot to give myself a loot token at the start of the turn. So I could have tied the game up already, but because I was bloodthirsty and overexcited, I didn't do things correctly and screwed myself out of a point. So when I did the reform, I decided to have the Palace Guard go back to make up for their short-sightedness, and I have the hunters ready so that they can go after the rock that used to be his wizard. Over here, not surprisingly, the trolls just cannot handle it. I think I just rolled the attacks for the Dragon Kindred Lord and did enough where he was going to need double ones anyway, so he was just like, go ahead and roll. Rolled it, and they went poof. And then over here, things keep going. I only put 9 wounds on the Bloodsworn, but then I roll well enough. I roll an 8 on the dice, and they break. And now I have pretty much minus his 1 character there. I control the right side of the board. So he decides on turn 5 to put on his big boy pants, pull out his giant brass balls, and come slam them right down the throat of this dragon. However, it wasn't until after he completed the charge and starts looking at his character's stats that he realizes that this wizard has a single attack with which to do damage to the dragon. So obviously this was not the best choice, but at this point he's figuring if he can hurt the dragon, knock him out of flight, then I'm going to have trouble getting over and having the dragon pick up a loot token there too. So he's kind of making the best of a bad situation on this flank. And then he realizes, holy crap, it's turn 5 and I'm chasing stuff that doesn't matter to the victory conditions. So he turns 90 degrees and starts rushing towards the center to claim that center objective and get him some more treasure. And over here, he accomplishes nothing, does not hit the dragon, and bounces off an inch. So, start of my turn 5, I realize, hey, I should claim tokens, and my archers pick up a loot token. I rearrange here for some shooting on these guys and push forward and do a 90-degree turn with the Shamblers so that I can surge them into the wizard and go ahead and take him off the board. I move up so that both units are within 3 inches of contesting the center. And then before I did the shooting, did 3 wounds to his wizard, and then got enough of the surge so that the Shamblers end up in the wizard's backfield. And then during combat, the Shamblers beat the poor ballsy wizard to death. Then over here, top of turn 6, my opponent decides that he is not going to let me get an extra token here and runs right up and busts me in the face. The Varangar are going against the Palace Guard, and I think the Varangar have a little bit of an advantage here. And yes, they do, as now they are claiming that token while standing on a giant pile of dead palace guard. So yeah, he turns around, faces off against my sea guard, and basically says, "Come at me, bro." So my turn 6, the dragon is within 3 of the red token, so he picks up his loot token. So right now it's 2-1. And I kind of realize at this point that if I do nothing else, if we go into turn 6, or if we go into turn 7, I win, because he can't claim the token in the center. And if we don't go into turn 6, I win. So really not much more to do at this point, except try to be a total dick and run my elf mage up to the top of the hill and hope to get just an amazing lightning bolt off on these Sons of Corrigan and rout them. But I don't. I get 1 wound off on them, which isn't enough to rout them, so they're not going to lose that token at all. Janandra, the Lady of Springhollow, looked into her scrying pool to watch the retreat of the Varangar. She felt fortunate that her people had only encountered a small raiding force, whose mind was more on plunder than carnage. While the dragon kindred had acquitted themselves well, she knew how outnumbered they were by even the smallest of the civilizations that surrounded them. Janandra called upon her magic to look deeper into the lands of the Varangar. She knew that Vaskar had heard the beginnings of the conflicts happening on the eastern edge of the island, and it could be no coincidence that his warriors came to Springhollow seeking supplies. Sure enough, her magic revealed the Varangar massing for battle. She did not know their destination, but realized if they were not stopped, they would soon carve a bloody path of slaughter through all of Dinan. With another spell, Janandra's spirit stepped from her body and flew across the land, eventually plunging beneath the waves of the ocean north of the island. She had to send word to Falariath. Her ally, Lord Aelin, would no doubt need time to muster his troops to help face the Varangar aggression. Alright, so we did actually get a turn 7, but there really wasn't anything to do with it. My guys just stood there staring at him. He could have gone for charged into the Sea Guard for some extra kills, but he couldn't have gotten a victory point out of it because you have to claim the loot tokens at the start of your turn. So we kind of just shook hands at this point and led to a 2-1 victory, Elves over Varangar. So all in all, this was a fun game. We both had a good time. My opponent, still kind of thinking that this operates like Warhammer and or Ninth Age did, was getting kind of discouraged when it looked like things were going bad for him. I had several just great shooting rolls early on. Then when he realized that he absolutely about-faced the left flank on me, he realized he was still in it and kept fighting. So that's super awesome. In terms of general strategy, my strategy worked on the left flank well in terms of getting rid of his cavalry, but I think my big problem there is I completely underestimated the Sons of Corrigan and did not have nearly enough firepower and or meaty units to handle them. So I kind of just gave him the left flank unintentionally. Number 2 issue, I wasted so much time with the archers and the dragon kindred chasing down that freaking little horse unit. The dragon could have been causing a lot more trouble before then. Just by random luck and the fact that I decided to just hold up in that forest really was the only reason that flank turned out as well as it did. My opponent probably, just kind of thinking upon this in hindsight, probably should have just left me in the forest. I wasn't doing anything to gain victory there. He could have turned those units to the side and brought them to the center and just contested the living hell out of the center, hopefully picking up a couple of treasure points there, and it might have been better off for him. And I think ultimately, though, he also got distracted with his second unit of Sons of Corrigan going after the archers instead of going to the center. Maybe if he had been a little bit, well, certainly if he had been a little more aggressive from turn 1, he would have done more fighting in my backfield and kept me away from getting any of the tokens. So I definitely think that was how he wanted it, or how he should have done it, rather. I think really the only reason why that didn't happen is that he didn't really know the army. This is his first Varangar game. I don't think he really kind of understood how much shooting I had and how aggressive the Varangar needed to be. I probably would not have put his unit of Sons of Korrigan behind the forest either, because that slowed him down unnecessarily. If he had maybe put that unit right behind his mounted Sons of Korrigan and just swept in from the left, he probably would have gotten a lot more done before the end of the game. But he did good in trying to kind of contest the center point at the end, but ultimately it was a little too late, because I was able to get more units with treasure out of the right flank where I'd claimed. So, but all in all, it was a good game. I kind of like this Scavenge scenario. This is the first time we played it, so it's neat that you can earn victory points kind of throughout the game as it goes on. So that's certainly neat and changes the way I've got to think of things. Also, because I just completely ignored picking up the money and ran off. So this would have been, had I been smart enough to actually do that, this would have been a 3-1 victory. So it didn't cost me anything this time, but it certainly could have had things gone differently. So I think my issue is I need to kind of allocate my forces better, A, and B, make sure that I'm playing to the scenario rather than just having fun running around and murdering stuff, and I would probably be better off. But hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.